Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling a whole stack of sources, all centered around Daystar, a major Christian television network and a family embroiled in controversy. We've got interview excerpts, expense reports, we've even got a photo of a tracking device. Really? Buckle up, that's going to be a wild ride. Yeah, so what's fascinating here is how a story seemingly focused on just a marriage dispute actually reveals all these deeper issues, power and control, and these really conflicting interpretations of faith. Okay, so let's unpack this, starting with the Lamb family. They're like Daystar royalty. The patriarch Marcus Lamb, together with his wife Joni, built the network from scratch, and his son Jonathan was seemingly the heir apparent. Okay, but things get messy when Marcus passes away. And Jonathan's mom, Joni, she quickly remarries this controversial figure, Doug Weiss. And I think the speed of it all really raises eyebrows, like this whirlwind romance. Yeah, with the suspicious timing. Lots of unknowns about Doug's past. It makes you wonder about Joni's motivations after losing Marcus. Yeah, was it love? Was it this grab for control? The timeline is crazy. She connects with Doug while he's still married. Downplays attempts by his wife, Lisa, to reconcile. That's not all. She even puts down a deposit for a honeymoon before the engagement is even announced. With all that and more, Jonathan and his wife Susie were understandably concerned. They had serious reservations about Doug's ethics as a counselor marrying a former client, not to mention his past and the rushed nature of it all. Yeah, this sets the stage for a clash that goes way beyond just a family squabble. Then comes this intense submit or leave meeting led by Jimmy Evans, a big name in Christian circles. He basically pressures Jonathan and Susie to endorse the marriage. Yeah, even though it goes against everything they believe about divorce and remarriage. This meeting is really a prime example of what we call spiritual abuse, where religious authority is used to manipulate. To fully grasp the intensity, let's look at the recordings.
What is the proper role of submission and authority in the church? The question has become a hot topic after we released audio from a meeting in which Daystar President Joni Lamb and her ally Jimmy Evans pummeled Joni's son Jonathan and his wife Susie with an absolute demand they submit.
Submission means she's the voice of God to you. What she says is God in Daystar. This is the voice of God in Daystar. Wait a minute, Jonathan. She's the voice of God in Daystar.
No.
She is God's voice to you here on this property and related to Daystar Network. She is God's voice. You submit to her with the right spirit. You submit. You have to submit. Either you submit or you don't.
We'll leave if you don't submit to me. You'll submit to me. You'll submit to my authority. That's all. I don't want to hear anything else. Yes, Mom, I'll submit to you.
Whatever she says moving forward is God.
You can hear Jimmy Evans repeatedly urging submit, submit, submit. Then Joni states, if you don't believe God sent Doug into my life, we can't do ministry together. And later even shocks her son further by saying, me and Doug will run this till Jesus comes. Talk about pressure. Right, Jonathan and Susie are stuck between their faith and their roles within the family and the ministry. They're caught in this web of conflicting loyalties. And their attempts to navigate it according to their own conscience set off this chain reaction with huge consequences. And if that wasn't enough, there are also these unresolved allegations of child sexual abuse against Pete, Joni's Australian-born and raised son-in-law, and Rachel's husband, who goes by the name Joshua Brown. You bet this adds another layer of complexity to the whole family dynamic. It's a chilling development, and the conflicting accounts surrounding it, along with inconsistencies in Joni's narrative, are disturbing. It's like a lack of a proper investigation raises serious questions about what was prioritized, truth or protecting the family image. It makes you wonder about the pressure Jonathan and Susie must have felt, wanting to protect their daughter, but also fearing these repercussions from Daystar. And speaking of Daystar, the financial irregularities Jonathan uncovers are pretty alarming. Let's delve into those. So Jonathan's access to Daystar's financial records exposes some questionable practices, like Daystar covering Joni's lavish honeymoon, Rachel Brown's, Jonathan's sister's extravagant photo shoots. Plus, Doug immediately gets this co-hosting position. So Jonathan saw all these as red flags, right? Raising concerns about financial accountability. But his objections were met with resistance. And this is when things take a turn straight out of a spy thriller. Oh, he finds a tracking device planted in his car by Daystar Security. This discovery, along with the attempted cover-up, suggests that Daystar was more focused on controlling information than addressing potential wrongdoing. Yeah, this attempt to silence Jonathan really makes what he discovered about the finances even more concerning. What were they so afraid that he would reveal? What starts as a family drama quickly expands into this whole story about power and control, and potentially a whole lot more. And it forces us to ask, when does loyalty to an institution become a betrayal of its core values? This tension between protecting an image and seeking truth is a thread that runs through this entire saga. So let's revisit those child sexual abuse allegations against Pete, Joni's son-in-law. It's here where this whole story takes kind of a darker turn, raising these concerns that go way beyond family drama. We really need to understand the role of Denise Boggs here. She was this counselor who was close to the Lamb family for years, offering guidance and support, even being there for them during Marcus's final days. So she had a front row seat to their whole dynamic. And when allegations about Pete surfaced, Denise becomes a really key figure. Yes, she urged Joni to address these concerns about Doug's past and his separation from Lisa before rushing into this marriage. Initially, Joni seemed receptive, even agreeing to hear Lisa out. But then Jimmy Evans enters the picture, endorsing Doug and Joni's relationship. And suddenly, any concerns about Doug's past are just kind of brushed aside. It's like a pattern we see throughout this whole story, right? These powerful figures within the ministry kind of dictating the narrative. Denise, despite her years of experience and closeness with the family, is ignored. And it's not just about the marriage. Denise also had concerns about Doug himself, even describing him as a wolf in sheep's clothing in a letter to Joni. She warned Joni about flattery and manipulation, even using biblical references to highlight the potential for spiritual warfare. These warnings are pretty powerful, coming from someone who knew the family so intimately. Yet they seem to prioritize the image of this happy family and a thriving ministry over addressing potential wrongdoing. It's like appearances mattered more than genuine accountability. And this becomes even more apparent when we look at how the allegations against Pete are handled. So, Jonathan and Susie seek professional help for their daughter, and the counselor recommends reporting it to Child Protective Services, which is standard procedure. But instead of supporting a thorough investigation, Joni shuts it down, declaring Pete innocent based on her own intuition and prayers. That's a troubling response, especially considering how serious this situation is. Hang tight, because in part 2 of our Daystar deep dive, we'll be digging deeper into those unresolved child sexual abuse allegations and how they were handled or perhaps mishandled by the family in Daystar. Jonathan, despite his misgivings, feels pressured to submit to his parents' authority. Yeah, he talks about growing up in an environment where questioning his parents had serious consequences. So, even though his gut is telling him something is wrong, he initially trusts his father's assurance that Pete had been cleared by a forensic counselor, which, as we learn later, was a lie. Yeah, the counselor never cleared Pete and had actually refused to even complete the evaluation. It's wild. That's a devastating realization for Jonathan to find out that his own father, this patriarch he revered, was willing to deceive him to protect the family and the ministry. It's heartbreaking. Like a profound betrayal, it exposes the lengths to which they were willing to go to maintain control and silence dissent. This whole culture of secrecy and denial within Daystar is deeply concerning. Instead of addressing the allegations head-on, they swept them under the rug, prioritizing their image over the pursuit of truth. Which begs the question, what else might they be hiding? It shakes the foundation of their claimed values. Their actions completely contradict their message, raising these concerns about the potential for other victims to be silenced and discouraged from coming forward. Moving on to the financial irregularities that Jonathan uncovers, it seems like there's another layer of questionable dealings happening within Daystar. So we've got this family drama unfolding, these serious allegations being mishandled, and now we're adding financial irregularities to the mix. This is where Jonathan's role within Daystar becomes even more important. Jonathan was doubly involved in Daystar's finances. He had access to all the records, expense reports, credit card statements, you name it. And what he found was troubling, to say the least. We're not just talking about like a few questionable receipts here. Jonathan uncovered what seemed to be like a pattern of lavish spending. And reimbursements that just didn't add up. Right. He saw things like Daystar covering Joni's expensive honeymoon, Rachel Brown's elaborate photo shoots, and Doug's immediate placement in a co-hosting role. These weren't small discrepancies, they pointed to like a potential lack of financial accountability at the very top. And when Jonathan raised concerns, he was met with resistance, essentially told to mind his own business. But his commitment to financial integrity wouldn't let him ignore what he'd found. It's almost like his attempts to do the right thing just triggered this backlash. And that's where the tracking device comes in. The fact that Daystar Security planted a tracker on Jonathan's car is just incredible, like straight out of a spy movie. It feels like this desperate attempt to control the situation, to like keep a lid on whatever they were trying to hide. And then they tried to cover it up by claiming it was just standard procedure to track all company vehicles. But Jonathan, being this meticulous record keeper that he is, had the receipts to prove otherwise. The expense reports clearly showed that the tracker purchased for his car was literally the first one Daystar had ever bought. So their attempt to like deflect and discredit him completely backfired. So we have this combination of financial irregularities and this deliberate attempt to silence the person who uncovered them. What does that tell us about the culture at Daystar? It suggests this environment where power and control were prioritized over transparency and accountability. They weren't just trying to protect their image, they were actively trying to suppress any information that could damage it. It gets worse, and it gets even worse. When Jonathan and Susie refused to back down, they were hit with these accusations of blackmail and extortion. It seems like Daystar was willing to go to any lengths to discredit them and paint them as the villains, the classic deflection tactic. Shift the focus, muddy the waters, and hope the public doesn't see the real issues at play. But Jonathan and Susie, despite this immense pressure, refused to be silenced. They lost their positions, their income, their standing within the family. They sacrificed everything because they were committed to doing what they believed was right. It's a testament to their integrity. Yeah, they could have easily stayed quiet, protected their own interests. Instead, they chose to speak truth to power, even though it cost them dearly. So what can we take away from this whole Daystar saga? It's a story full of twists and turns, family drama, and some pretty unsettling revelations. It's a reminder that things aren't always as they appear. Organizations that present themselves as like beacons of righteousness can have these dark underbellies. It highlights the dangers of unchecked authority, spiritual abuse, and the lengths to which some will go to maintain control. It also shows like the courage it takes to stand up for what you believe in. Yeah, even when facing like overwhelming opposition, Jonathan and Susie's story is a reminder that truth matters. And that sometimes the most difficult path is also the most important one to take. Undoubtedly, this deep dive has given you a glimpse into a complex and disturbing situation. But it's not just about Daystar, it's about asking those hard questions, being critical of those in positions of power, and understanding that loyalty doesn't mean blind acceptance. And sometimes uncovering the truth requires sacrifice. Keep asking those questions and keep diving deeper. That's all for this deep dive. Until next time.